Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Bava Basra, Daf Kufamates, Bava Basra 139. Today's Daf Yomi is dedicated to the Shmira for the Chayalim, Atzal for the Shuyim, and Yeshua for Am Yisrael and the Seis Sarah. And we're going to start with the Mishnah on 139a. It says the Mishnah, Hiniach Banim Gedolim Ukatanim. If you leave behind adult children and minor children, Ina Gedolim Isparnas and Alidei Aktanim. The Gemara is going to explain this fully. But what it means is the adult children, Rashban says, they need more money for clothing. They have to get their Lululemons, they have to get their Airbird, their Allbirds, whatever it's called, their Allbirds, and their Lululemons, and their what's that guy? What's the shirts everybody buys? What am I wearing? Charles Turk shirts. So they have to spend more money on clothing than the kids. So therefore, you can't say, okay, we get more money for our clothing, and we'll take it from the kids. And the kids, they require more money for food. They have to get a lot of lunches in school. The adults, they're already working. They're not eating as much. So the children can't take extra money for the food. They split everything equally. And let's say that the adults got married after the father died, but before the estate was divided. So then Yisu Katanim, then the children can also get money for their marriage. But let's say, the way the Gemara explains this is, let's say the father, they got married before the father died. The adults got married before the father died. So then we say, if the adults got married before the father died, then the children can also get them. No, excuse me. If the children say, we want to get married, look, you had a $200,000 wedding with all these fancy catering in the Pierre Hotel, and it's a $2 million wedding in the Pierre Hotel, and the Mordechai Van David as the singer. We want that, even though you got married while our father was still alive, but we're getting married after. We think the state should pay for that. So the Mamru Katanim Ariana Nosi Kederach Shanasatim Atem, we want to get married just the same way you got married, ain't Shomalam. We don't listen to them. They only take what the father left, they divide that. Same idea, but this time with girls. You got behind adult girls and minor girls. The adult girls can take extra money for their food, clothing. From the minors. And the minors can't take extra food from the estate. They split it up equally. Nasu gedolos, yisu ketanos. If the adults got married before the estate was divided, so too should the daughters. And if the minors say, listen, we want to get married just like you got married, ain't shomalam. You don't say that. They're not entitled to get. If the father gave them money before the estate, before he died, you can't say that that's part of the estate. And but there is a stringency with respect to girls than sons. Shabanos nizonos alabanim ve'in nizonos alabanos. So what this means, the Gemara is going to explain, is that if there's a case where the estate has to support, the estate always has to support the girls so that they can be sustained. But that's only if the state is sons and daughters. But if it's just daughters, then the minor girls are not supported from the estate at the expense of the older daughters. But if it's sons, then the minor girls are supported. What's a minor girl? In the time of the Talmud, it was up to 12 years old. But after 12, you didn't have to support them. But nowadays, it's, into their 20s probably. So Amarava, hi, Gado, Achi, to Lavash, the Ichsimi Besa. So Rava says this. Rava says, "Hi Gadol." Rava says this adult brother, the Lavash the Ichsimi Besa, he's paying for his clothing from the household by the Avid, meaning to say whatever he did is good. He's allowed to support his clothing. This brother presumably he's got to do business on behalf of the estate. So he's allowed to pay for his clothing from the estate, because how else is he going to go to the meetings if he's dressed like a shlum? So he has a clothing budget. So Gemara says, "Va'anan tanan," but doesn't that contradict what our Mishnah says? Eina gedolim misparnas and al-tanim, that the adults can't pay for their clothing budget from the estate. So the Gemara says, "Masnisim b'shirka." Our Mishnah is talking about a guy who's like a brother who's just sitting at home all day doing nothing. So that's a guy you're not required to pay for him. Shirka pshita. Well, obviously, if he's not working, why should the minor children pay for him? So the Gemara says, "No, you might have said." That the state doesn't want somebody to look like a homeless man. So therefore we can fund him above everybody else. So we say we don't say that. Kamashal, we don't say that. Nasu Gedolim Yusu Katanim. So the Gemara says, what is this statement? My Kamar, Amar Aviudah Kamar. And I already explained it a little bit, but we'll say it again inside. Nasu Gedolim Achar Misa Saviyim. Let's say after the father died, the adults got married from the estate. Yisu Katanim Achar Misa Saviyim. Then the minors can get married. But let's say the adults got married while their father was still alive. And the minor said after they died, we want to have a wedding just like you. We want the smorgasbord. We want the full New York experience. Ain't Shomalan. You don't listen to them. Whatever their father gave to them, they gave to them while after their deceased, and that's what they split. Says the next clause. If he leaves behind adult and daughter girls, so now we have, what's the statement here? Teach us the following case. This is a beautiful little piece here. So there's a girl, she borrows money, she uses up the loan, and now she gets married. But then she brings other property into the estate. She hasn't paid back her loan yet, but she now brings other property into the estate. So the question is her husband who gets this property, the use of the fruits while he's married to her, and in principle after she's gone, what's the relationship of the husband to the wife's assets? Is he considered a lokei achavi? Is he considered like a purchaser? Or yorei shavi? Or is he considered like an heir? Well, why do we care? Mar explains, is it lokei achavi? Is he like a purchaser or milval pet since the money that you had a question? We're about to say that right this second. This is what we're about to say. Milval pet, do we say that he's considered like a buyer and like he bought something from her? And so therefore, milval pet, if somebody has a loan that he borrowed or that he lent out orally, and now he's coming to claim it, he can't go into the people who purchased something from that person and reclaim it, because how are they supposed to know? Otherwise, commerce would shut down. So do we say he's like a purchaser, and so therefore the person who entered the money has no recourse to collect it? Do we say he's an heir? And since he's an heir, the people who lent her money can go claim it from him. Follow that, Bill? You got it? No, I mean, I just want to make sure. So purchaser means somebody who buys something. If I go into a store and buy if I buy your field, and if Reuven had lent Shimon money, and Levi goes and buys the field from Shimon, can Reuven go and collect it from Levi? So if we say it was just an oral loan, then you can't collect it from the purchaser. But if it was an inheritance, then you could collect it. So therefore, that's what we're saying. So which is he? Is he a purchaser or is he an inheritor? So the Gemara explains, Amarle, Tanina, we learned, Nasu Gedolos, Yisu Katanos. So it says that if the adult girls got married, then the minor girls can also take money for their marriage. My love, aren't we talking about, isn't the scenario here, Nasu Gedolos Labal, that if the adult girls got married to a husband, Yisu Katanos Mibal, then the minor girls can go for their wedding and go into that estate and take it from him. So it must be he's an heir. And it proves he's an heir. So the Gemara says, "Lo, nisu gedolos labal, yisu katanos labal." No, that's not what it means. It means that if the adult girls get married, the minor girls can also get married. Not that they can seize it from the estate. Is this really the case? We say specifically they could seize it from their husbands. The Gemara says, okay, fine. But Dilmashani Parnasa the Islay Kohen. No, that case is different. Why is that case different? Because for a marriage, everybody knows everybody knows that you're going to need money for a marriage. Shani Parnasa the East Koa. Everybody knows you're going to need money for a marriage, and so therefore, uh, it's like they took the money, not orally, but as a contract, and so therefore they could collect it even from the purchaser. So even if the husband is like a purchaser, they could collect it under those circumstances. You had a question? You don't have no question? Okay, so we're still trying to say, is the husband a purchaser or is he an heir?
It's as if
Right, because it's a right. He obviously didn't buy it because he's her husband. But do we view him as though it's as if he bought it or it's as if he inherited it? He obviously didn't do either one. He married her. How are we viewing him? Are we viewing him as a purchaser or viewing him as an heir? So we're trying to answer this question. So Rav Papa wants to cite a letter. Rav Papa Isn't this the letter that Ravin sent? He says the following: Misha meis v'niach almano ba. Somebody dies, leaves behind a widow and a daughter. Almanoso nizonas minachasef. His widow is supported from his estate. Almanuso nizonas minachasef. Nises habas. And let's say the daughter gets married. Almanoso nizonas minachasef. So we say, what did he say in the letter? He says that let's say somebody dies leaves behind a widow and a daughter. The widow is supported from the estate, but let's say the daughter inherited, and she brings the assets into her husband. The widow continues to be supported from the asset. But Mesa Bas, once the daughter dies, and now the husband inherited. I had this incident. We say the widow continues to be supported. So we see from here that the husband of the daughter is considered to be like an heir. So Gemara says, now we say Amris. Now, if you want to say Amris Bishlama, if you want to say Yorish Havi, if you want to say that he's an heir, that's why a widow is supported by the estate. If you want to say that the new husband is considered to be like a purchaser, then why is he supported from the estate? Shkoyach. And why is he supported from the estate under those circumstances? Because it's why is the widow supported? It's like an oral loan, and so why should she be supported? Why could she claim from it? So Amar Abaye, he loved it. So that seems to be very clear that the husband is like considered to be like an heir. Therefore, he has to pay the widow. So Amar Abaye, you loved it. Shalach Ravin. What do you mean? You think you need this letter from Ravin? If we're not for this letter, we wouldn't know. Then we learn explicitly in the Mishnah in Bechoros. Well, these are the fields that go back to their original owner in the Jubilee year. What are these fields? Habachora, Vayorish Ishto, a person who inherits a double portion as a firstborn. So these are the ones that don't go back in the Jubilee year because he inherited. It's not like he purchased it. Only fields you purchased have to go back to the original estate, but fields that you bought don't go back. And firstborn doesn't go back. And yeah. And 139 Vayorish Ishto, and also a person who inherits his wife. So we see from here that the husband is considered an heir and not a purchaser. So why do we need the letter that Ravin sent? He says just the opposite. Now that he sent it, do we still even know? Didn't we say in Usha they instituted takana. Usha was the place, and Rosh Hashanah tells us that, and that from an Aleph, that was one of the places that the Sanhedrin was exiled to, and the 10 exiles, and they established certain takanas there. One of the takanas was about the shofar blowing. So he says that they made this takana that let's say a woman, what happens that a woman gets married to her husband, and she brings into the marriage the nichsei melug. That means the pluckings. That means she gives her husband the estate, and she keeps a hold of the estate, and her husband's entitled to the fruits of the estate while they're married. But now, while they're married, she sells the estate to somebody else. She brings in a field, and she sells the field. He gets the fruit, but she sells the rice to the field. And now she dies. The husband's allowed to go to the purchasers and take it back. So we see from here that he's going to be considered. It proves, and if the husband will be like an heir, he hasn't inherited yet. So of course she's allowed to sell it. So it must be that the husband is considered like a purchaser. So therefore, which is he? Is he a purchaser or is he an heir? From the first source, it seems to be an heir, and from here, he seems to be a purchaser. The rabbi said sometimes he's like an heir and sometimes like a purchaser. They did it to favor the husband. With respect to the Jubilee year, the rabbi said he's like an heir. We shouldn't say that today. We don't want him to lose his field that he inherited. By the case of Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, with respect to a woman who sold her Nechse Melug, Shavina Rabbanan Kolkech. The rabbi said he's considered to be like a purchaser, and meaning to say that we don't want him to lose the marriage. Mishum Seda Didei, we don't want him to lose any money. Gabe the Ravin, in the case of Ravin, where it's the case where the widow is being supported by the estate, Mishum Seda Dalmana, we don't want the widow to lose it. So the rabbi said he's like an heir. So the rabbis just looked at each situation and decided who they wanted to favor. Well, what about the case of Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, which is the case where the husband could take it? She sold a nechse melug, and we allow the husband to take it back. So aren't we costing the purchasers, the buyers, their money there? So Gemara says, and that was their own loss. Even the ikabao, they shouldn't have gotten involved in their marriage and started buying property from the woman that the husband really was not even though not technically, but he was maybe morally first in line to. So they cost themselves. Anybody have a question about this? Yeah, sure.
The father and the son, or father gave, I don't know which way to put it, property. The son kept the rights to the fruits of the property. And then,
so yeah, he gave the property so that he could use them while his son was while he was still alive.
Sold the property.
There was a question: did he have the right to sell it? Because that was a gift. That was a gift from today and after death, how you're able to do it. But here it's nechse melug.
If the son sells the property, there was an issue. You couldn't keep the purchaser.
It's at the top of the page.
This page?
No, 137A at the top. Right. It says, well, that was a different case. Maybe 136A. Or maybe one. Okay, but they had a whole bunch of cases, yeah.
Oh, it's just trying to compare situations. It's here the purchaser doesn't really have the full rights to it.
He didn't purchase it here. Which purchaser? The husband? She wasn't the purchaser. She brought it into her marriage with her.
No, if she sells,
she's not the purchaser.
Yeah.
You mean the person she sold it to? Yeah, that was the takana they made. They didn't want to encourage, and the Gemara in Ksubos mentions they wanted to specifically discourage these types of things because it'll bring enmity into the marriage. They didn't want to do it.
This is different. Okay, that's why it's different.
Yeah.
So the bottom line, she sells it during her lifetime. Then she dies. Husband can then buy back. He buys back the property, or just the produce.
No, he already has the produce. He already has the produce. It's the property, but it doesn't say that he buys it. It says he takes it back from them. It's a question whether he has to pay for it or he just gets to take it. So that's a question. So now the Gemara. Now we start to the next Mishnah. Let's say somebody dies and they leave behind sons and daughters. The So let's say there's a lot of money. The Gemara is going to talk about what a lot of money is. Yershu Abanos, the daughters inherit. Excuse me, I read that wrong. Somebody dies, leaves behind sons and daughters. When there's a lot of money, the sons inherit, and the daughters get supported by the estate. Let's say there's not a lot of money, then the daughters get supported, and the boys have to go and ask for money. Why do the boys have to go ask for money? Because the daughters get supported by the ksuva, and so therefore they're first in line. The Shita Mekubetis gives a different answer, that it's because the daughters are not accustomed to go begging. We would rather the sons go begging. Excuse me. Aman Omer Bishvil Shani Zachar Ani Hefsadati. He says, because I'm a man, I'm going to lose. So Rabbi Gamliel says, I see the words of Admon. Rashbam writes that halacha is like Admon, meaning to say that they both get supported by the estate and they both go begging. But however, Tosfos says no way. Tosfos says the Bahag, the Rach, the Riv, they all rule like the Rabbanan, not like Admon. And Rabbeinu Tam says, actually, Admon is not arguing with the Rabbanan. He's just shocked at their statement. But with respect to halacha, he agrees with them. But the Tosfos is right, that doesn't seem that way from the Mishnah, so it's a whole question. How do we pass it?
It wasn't that you said previously that the daughters each get 10%.
That was the Gemara. We said that Isurta, that they get the 10% to pay for their wedding. That's to pay for their weddings. Oh, is this? I don't know that this is for the 10% or not. I don't know if this includes the 10%, if they get the 10% beforehand. That's before the sons inherit. But here we're talking about a case where there's not enough money to pay anyone, so one of them has to go begging. So I assume the 10% wasn't paid in this case either. So Vikama Merubin, I don't know the answer to that question though, about the 10% in this case. Kama Merubin, what's considered a lot of money? To support it for 12 months. Kamrisa Kamei Deshmo Amar Zudeve Rabbi Gamliel Bar Rebbe Avo Chammam Kadeshi Yizuna Man Elu Ve'elu Ad Shibagro, enough to support them until they grow older, which is until they become mature enough. So in those days, the Yad Ramah says it was to 12 years old. That's what the Rambam says. But nowadays it's more. And nowadays, obviously, you're not going to say 12 years old, you're on your own. Go start being a peddler at the age of 12, or being a servant, like in some nobleman's household. Imar Nami Kiyasa Rabin Amar Rabbi Yochanan Amar Amar Baruchan Amar Rabbi Yochanan Kol She'ezunu Me'en Elu Ve'elu Ad Shebagru Hey Merubin. Whatever is enough to support them until they grow older, that's considered a lot. Pachos Mikan Arei Miyat, and if it's less than that, that's considered less. And so the Gemara says, wait 1 second. If there isn't enough to support them until they both become mature, Shakalu Banas Lakul, do you mean to say that the daughters take everything and the sons get nothing? Meaning to say, if there's not enough for both of them until they get older, why should the daughters get the extra and the sons get nothing? That doesn't make sense. So you take out enough for the daughters until they get older, and then the rest goes for the sons. So, okay, hold on. That's today's daf.